Howdy, folks. Happy Monday. It's deadline week. Yes, baby. 4 days away from the trade deadline. We'll be doing our trade deadline show starting at noon on Friday and probably lasting till 4 o'clock. And when the trades peter out, we're not going to be doing. I'm sorry. I have a lot of respect for all the people at TSN and Sportsnet, but doing shows starting at 8 a.m. and just talking over and over about the same thing, waiting for the deals to happen. They wouldn't do it unless people were watching, but geez. But anyway, we'll start with the pre-show. Go ahead, Russ.
Yeah, so let's the NFL Combine happened, and so a couple things. I watched a little of it. I put up one article on Sportsology about like 3 wide receivers the Jets can go after, and I'm doing one about linebackers.
Mm-hmm.
But while watching it, there were some things that really stood out to me, and one thing was like they're a little bit more. What they're doing at their combine is a little bit more geared toward the sport than what the NHL is. Now, the NHL is doing things that lead up to what you can do. So, in other words, yes, if you could jump high, your speed burst is better. But they're doing things that actually happen in the sport. But I thought, okay, they're not going to do this on the ice or ever do anything like that. And a lot of guys didn't run the 40 either. Like one quarterback ran, the rest didn't. Right. So my thought was, though, and I passed this on to somebody and they liked it, I think you should have something that shows off a player's hockey sense. So in other words, if it's hey, if this thing lights up, what do you do? That kind of thing, like off the ice, like they do, maybe something like that.
Like a whack-a-mole type of thing?
Huh?
Like a whack-a-mole type of thing?
Yeah, like a whack-a-mole, like to say, where would you be? They show them video, they stop, where would you be? And you press this button, this shows you there. I'd be here, that guy there.
Well, I mean, you do know, because we've both been at the Combine over the last few years, and we do know that teams will show video, like vignettes, saying, okay, here's the play, here's what happens. Now tell us what you would do, and then they run the play and show what the player did, and it might be somebody who turned it over and went the other way, or it might be somebody who created an opportunity for scoring. So they do that in a sense.
But I'm going one step further.
Okay,
I'm going like, hey, make it a time thing where it's like there's pressure on them to tell you, like if you do it with the lights, right, you've got a certain amount of time, but then it's also it's part of everybody's going to do it, not just a couple of teams that thought about it. Mm-hmm. Everybody's going to do it now, and I think it would be a benefit.
Well, Peter, it's like, I mean, these teams know more than I do in terms of what works and what translates to, hockey IQ, or translates to, whatever physical attributes they're looking for from these players. I do know that in listening to some of the football reporters in Buffalo who are talking about like certain players at certain positions, say wide receiver, which the Bills are probably going to draft, there, a lot of people are looking at wide receivers who run like a 40 and 4.3. But the problem is it doesn't translate to the NFL in terms of straight line speed. Yeah, you could be a sprinter. Ronaldo Nehemiah was a sprinter. He was the fastest guy in the world, or one of the fastest guys in the world. Problem is he couldn't run patterns, and he couldn't catch the ball. Like there are certain things that translate to being a good receiver more than just speed. And in hockey, I think there are probably certain other things that translate to being a good hockey player more than just what they do on the VO or the triple jump.
I agree. Mike, I totally agree. There are athletic things that are directly correlated to the outcome of your ability to perform in the NFL than there are in hockey. And I think one of the things that's really problematic is if you could design some things where you go on ice, they're more situational around problems and reactions. So how do you create a dynamic that measures everyone equally without them understanding what they're going to be dealing with and seeing what the outcome is prior to it, right? Like the 40, you got to run fast. The routes, you got to execute the route exactly, because the way the NFL works, you have to execute it exactly to make sure that that's there. And the quarterback makes a read on whether that's the throw he's going to make or not in a game situation. So there's just a different process. I think, for the NHL, for any player coming in, you've got to develop a skill-based on-ice thing that, and there's 1,000 people you can have on there who run it, hockey schools, former pros and things all over the place, right? Who could run this thing, but you've got to make it so that it has enough variables that it's not repeatable in the outcomes of what's the right outcome.
Yeah, see, I don't think it has to be on ice. Only because they just got done with the season at that point. And they literally, some have not even been off the ice for a week. It's a lot of workload. I think you could do things off ice that would do just as well. But I think they should switch it up a little. I'm in agreement with that. Like, change it up a little.
Right. All right, Let's get started. Hello, Hockey World. Today is Monday, March the 4th, 2024. Sorry, Aki, you were still...
It's okay.
Hey, I'm Peter and Pete Tessier in snowy Winnipeg for a change.
Nice.
Russ Cohen in balmy Glassboro, 65 degrees. Nice.
And I'm Eklund. You're watching HockeyBuzzcast on HockeyBuzz.com. This is the podcast that comes to you this week a lot because we have a big trade deadline coming up. And
it's balmy in Buffalo, by the way. It's 65 degrees here, Russ. Miracles. We got the same weather you got.
Wow. Yeah, it's super nice here, too. I wish it was snowing, though. I miss snow. We used to have snow.
If you want snow, go to California, up in the mountains. They got 12 feet.
Yeah, did you see that? Apparently, there was a massive car jam in the Donner Pass. It's like, gee, I wonder what happened there before.
Yeah. You gotta bring your seasoning. So that. Anyway, there you go. We have a lot to talk about today. So the trades have begun. The things are starting to kick off, and I was just on a call right now too, and I just want to start off with the hot rumor that's going on right now, which is that and this I've talked to so many people about this. The Devils are trying to swing Hanifin and Markstrom together in a trade that would send both of them to New Jersey. I still think that Markstrom, New Jersey, is going to get done. I really do. I think it's one of those situations where
the ship is half sunk already, though.
No, but it's also one of those situations where they kind of can't not get it done now. Like Markstrom wants to come. It's all known that he wants to come. It's one of those situations where it reminds me of the Patrick Kane thing where it fell apart. He got mad in New York, the Rangers, Patrick Kane trade this year. He got mad and then suddenly it got done.
Well, Markstrom clearly is pissed off because I mean, apparently from what they've been talking about over the last sort of 48 hours, and what his comments to the media, he basically told the Flames, "Don't come to me unless you have a deal that's ready to go."
Yeah,
and they did, and he said, "Okay, I'll go to New Jersey," and then they haggled over salary retention, and then it fell apart, and he's left holding for what? And it's like, okay, I mean, this is a situation where like he doesn't want to have this negotiated in the media and it dragging on, especially because he's got 2 more years left in the contract. And I don't blame him.
And the complicated thing about this all is that suddenly, the Calgary Flames are playing really well too, so that they're starting to pick it up, and they could actually make the playoffs. So that's the other thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's secondary here. I mean, with Markstrom maybe because he's got 2 years left, and you can trade him in the summer, and you probably don't lose much. With Hanifin, I don't care if you're in a playoff spot. If you can't get him signed, you move him. You trade him.
Oh, you got to sign. You got to trade him.
Yeah, I mean, it's just. I'm sorry. It's like, I mean, I get if it's a franchise that hasn't made the playoffs in 13 years, but like that franchise that I cover, they're 10 points out of a playoff spot.
Yeah,
you trade anything that's not nailed down.
I don't 25 games, Mike. They can make it.
Well, nobody's showing up right now anyway, Russ, so it doesn't matter.
We're only a couple days away from the NHL projected final standings coming out. We're working on this. That thing. That last year, my record was ridiculous. If you remember how crazy it was.
Thankfully, I have amnesia with that, and I never remember from
you. Never remember. I know it's crazy. No, it was a Hockey Buzz.
I wish I had amnesia.
Hockey Buzz 2000. That last year was crazy. I mean, we went like something like 32-4 in our first 3 games or 30 days or whatever. It's crazy.
Well, okay, let's extrapolate off what you just talked about in terms of Hanifin and Markstrom, because the report came out on the weekend. Elliot Friedman reported that Hanifin would prefer to go to Tampa Bay.
Yeah.
Okay. You tell me how that works, because now they've got the cap space because Sergachev is out probably for the year, or at least to the playoffs. So fitting him in before the deadline in terms of that is not the issue.
Yeah, it's not the issue.
They don't have any asset unless they're willing to trade like an Eric Cernak or trade like what's left of their prospect base. Yeah. And Russ, they have prospects. We know that they have prospects, but I mean, I don't know how this works with Tampa Bay, because I
don't either, honestly.
You know how it works.
Well, no, I don't see how Tampa Bay.
How they make the space.
We can never see it because we're not the capologists. But
no way. I mean,
look, Robidas Island shows up just off the coast, and it all works. How this goes.
It's not about that. It's not about fitting him under the cap this year, because Sergachev's $9.5 million makes that possible.
Yeah.
They don't have, I don't think they have a first round pick until 2026.
Right.
So, okay, if they're willing to trade their 2026 first round pick, fine. But I don't think that they're going to trade young assets and future assets unless they know they can get Hanifin signed. And that's the thing. It's like, I don't know. I mean, Russ, we talked about it, about what this would mean if they don't have a first till 2026. They don't have a first, second, and fourth next year. They don't have a first in 25. So, okay, you could trade your 2026 first, and you could trade a young player like one of their prospects. Fine, but how do you get them signed? And the only thing that would you say it. Go ahead, because
Stamkos won't be back. That's it. It's over.
Right.
That's very possible, and I mean, although I know, Stamkos really wants to come back, and I think we'll give him a pretty serious discount to come back, from what I've heard. So
he's not taking less than $5 million.
No, he's not taking less than $5 million, but I think with $5 million you can probably figure it out. I think that at that point, I mean, listen, we don't know how Hanifin's going to make it in there, but we also know that Tampa does. It does matter to Tampa to make the playoffs. They're a team that does need the revenue to make the playoffs. They really do, and I think they're going to make a push to make the playoffs here. I honestly do. There are not that many teams that have fallen that far out of it.
No, I get why they would make a push.
Yeah.
The only thing is, from the Stamkos side, if somebody else gets an extension that he doesn't think should impact him, and it does,
right,
then he's not going to give a discount, because he's a prideful guy, and he is not going. Yeah. He's already left money on the table, and he's at a point in his career where he still has a couple good years left. And I just have a feeling he's not going to leave much on the table.
I believe. Peter, let me just say this. I believe that the indicator of future behavior is past behavior. And if you look at what the Lightning have done over the last couple of years, Alex Killorn, early 30s, see you later. Andre Palat, early 30s, see you. Go to New Jersey. Ryan McDonough, mid 30s. We're going to trade you to Nashville. I know Stamkos is different because Stamkos was a first overall pick, but no, he's not. He's not. And if they try to screw him, which is what they're trying to do right now, let's not talk contract until the end of the year, and then they're going to say, well, we just signed Hanifin and we got to sign Hedman next year. Sorry, Steven, we can't. We can do a couple $1 million a year. If I'm Stamkos, I'm like, bye. I'm going to the Bruins. I'm going to the Rangers. I'm going to the Leafs, and I'm going to screw you with your pants on.
But does that change anything for Tampa? I don't think so.
It does. It does. I think he is an emotional leader for them, for sure. Yeah. It changes their power play.
Look, it changes the makeup of the team. But if you know to trade for someone, you have to get rid of $8.5 million in salary, then that's coming to an end anyway. So you're likely planning ahead of what do we do with that expenditure? That's the business decision in this.
Right.
And so if Stamkos wants to go sign for Boston for $4 million a year for 2 years just to try and win a cup, I think he should. And I think Tampa shouldn't give a crap, because if you get caught chasing what Steven Stamkos wants to do to prevent him from having success because he wants to stick it to you, you're never going to get anywhere.
Oh,
That's just bad. That's just bad behavior.
Look what's happening in Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh is a perfect example, right? Pittsburgh is chasing that, right? They're chasing Crosby, and it's the same situation. They're in a really bad spot right now.
But remember this. I mean, this is the thing. Stamkos in 2016, and we remember when it broke. I was driving up to Toronto, listening to the radio, and all of a sudden, Bill Meltzer called me and said Stamkos is going back to Tampa.
Yep.
And then when we heard what the salary was, because we heard the Leafs and a couple other teams were offering him 11 and a half, 12 million, and he took 8.5 to stay in Tampa. He's not taking another discount. He already did it. He took a discount on the entry level contract or on the bridge deal, and then he took a discount because they're in Florida and he gets a tax break on the 8-year extension. He's not doing it again.
I don't know, man. I don't know about that. I mean, honestly, like he's made all the money he's ever needed to make. He's really happy in Tampa. He's got a great home down there.
He's not really happy. No, hold on. He's not really happy because they did not talk to him at all this offseason, and he made it known he is not happy.
This is the what
now you might be saying he's happy with his teammates.
Yeah, he's happy
in his situation.
He's happy with his life down there. He's happy living there. He's probably going to live there the rest of his life.
Yeah.
But he's not happy with the disrespect, and it is disrespect that the organization is treating him. And hey, Victor Hedman, get ready because you're 34 when your contract is up. Now, maybe he's different because he's a defenseman, but I'm telling you right now, he feels disrespected by the way that they've treated him. And I'm telling you right now, he's going to go someplace. If they don't,
if they know that, go trade for Hanifin and start
right. But that's what we're saying, Peter. If they trade for Hanifin and they sign him, then I don't think they're going to trade for Hanifin unless they intend and know that they can sign him. If they're trading for Hanifin, Stamkos is gone.
Right. That era is done.
I mean, it's gone this year.
That's an M. That's an M.
If you trade for Hanifin and it gets you in the playoffs, and you start making noise, and say you make it to say you catch lightning in a bottle, pardon the pun, and you get moving,
right,
and you do make it to the conference finals and stuff. Is it worth it? And then Stamkos leaves? I say it is.
If he scores 10 playoff goals,
I say it is.
I don't know.
I mean, if Stamkos leaves, the team I'm calling, you know who the 3 teams are going to be on his agent's phone first.
Okay, let's see if you have the same 3. Go ahead.
Okay, Las Vegas, because they will.
Yeah.
Well, Vegas isn't on everybody's.
Colorado.
Okay, fine.
Colorado.
Yeah.
And Boston.
I think he's staying.
The Rangers will be in probably before all of them, Pete, because Sater wanted him back when Oren Cools and such were kind of messing around with them. Melrose was messing around with them. They've wanted him ever since then.
I think it's 3 teams in the East. I think he's going to want to stay in the East, and the Rangers are definitely one of them. I think the Bruins, obviously because of their center situation. And don't laugh. I think Toronto will be. Toronto was willing to pay him $11 million. Now I don't know how they do it, but I'm telling you, if there's anything to them trading Marner or whatever, you think that the splash of having to trade Marner someplace else is assuaged by them bringing Stamkos in?
You know what? If I'm Stamkos and you've got 2 cups to your name, right? Your legacy is secure.
Mm-hmm.
Like you've got nothing to worry about. I am a Stanley Cup mercenary for hire.
Mm-hmm.
And I go and do exactly what Solani and Korea did. And I don't need the money.
Right.
And I go to the best options to win. And I sign favorable $2 million with performance bonuses or things like that. The team can pick down.
If he goes to Toronto, where he's from Markham, if he goes to Toronto, a team that he apparently rooted for when he was a kid, and he joins Matthews and Nylander and Marner and Tavares and wins a cup, he's a god. He's a god.
Here's the thing, though. That's not his plan. His plan is the same as Crosby. He wants to be with the same team. He wants to be that guy.
Right.
He wants to be the best player in franchise history. He's a lot like Crosby that way. And the fact that Crosby is locked up and he's not is probably bothering him.
Right. But I think I agree. I think in a perfect world, Russ, he wants to stay with Tampa.
Right.
But the problem is that the way Tampa is acting right now, they're pigeonholing him into taking another. Okay, Steve, you've got to give up for this team because, and it's like, okay, how many times do I have to give up? How many times? When is it my time?
Well, how many times do you have to give up? But he's made a lot of money. He's won Stanley Cups. It's
about that it's not about how much money, or it's about he's made money. But in professional sports, these guys, it's about how much.
Yeah.
It's about how much. That's the side of respect.
That kind of guy. I really don't. I mean, Stamkos is a very different kind of character. Like I could be totally wrong. I could be 100% wrong. I've been wrong before. Occasionally, I've been wrong. But
I would say this: the same way Sam screwed up with Diane on Cheers, they're screwing up with
the same way.
Same way.
Oh, I love the days when someone can make an 80s sitcom reference, and I totally get it because I can't do that around anyone anymore. No one gets it.
I know. This is the only place I can do it.
Yeah, exactly.
I know. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, because
you guys see the sitcom Ghosts?
No.
I don't watch it. No.
I see the commercials and they turn me off.
It is freaking hilarious. It is really good.
Is it really that good?
You actually like it. Sorry, I'm not taking it away from you. You would like it because all the different historical characters in it. It's you being the history geek you are. You actually like it.
I'm too busy watching NCIS. So I mean, we think the Hanifin thing is going to happen. I would assume that's going to happen because, I mean,
I don't know if it's going to happen to Tampa though. I really don't.
No.
But why wouldn't it happen in general?
Yeah, no, he'll get traded. And I think that and I think New Jersey's going to have a good shot at it too. I really think that New Jersey's got a serious shot from talking to people at Markstrom and Hanifin together. And if they make that trade,
at least Markstrom. I think you're dead on.
They're going to have to give up some serious prospect picks.
And late in New Jersey though, by the time they get them playing.
Well, but both of those guys are not just this year guys. Like if
no, I get it, but like, how do you tell the fan base, hey, look, we got them, but you know what? Yeah, we're not going to make the playoffs this year. But next year, we're going to be really good. That's what they said this year.
I know, but I think that they were maybe ahead of schedule last year a little bit. Now they're behind schedule this year for sure. But I also think that they also have the Devils fans have been just craving a real goalie for such a long time now. Since Rodor left, I think that getting a real goalie for several years to come will help the Devils.
No, but it was realistic. Like they wanted to build off last year. Now, I get it. They had a lot of injuries on the blue line. They have a young blue line, but still, had they just gotten any goalie 2-3 weeks ago, is fine. If they're really set on Markstrom, I get what you're saying.
Right.
But there's no guarantee even getting these two guys now that puts them in the playoffs next year, just to get them to make it this year.
But I mean, you're right in the sense that Markstrom is more than just this year to get them in the playoffs because he's got term left in his contract. You have to be absolutely positively sure if you're a general manager trading for Hanifin that you can and will sign him. Because if you don't, then for New Jersey, it makes no sense that he's a rental. Then it's a team like Winnipeg or Edmonton trading for him when they have maybe no chance of signing him to an extension. At least you're getting that, but you're giving up a rental price.
Yeah. I mean, the one name I heard that would be involved going back to Calgary is Kevin Ball. I don't know if that's the name that's in there for sure.
I thought they liked him. I mean,
you like him.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you got to be getting more than Kevin Ball. And
he's just like, I mean, the prospects and some serious picks, but I'm sure there'll be more than there'll be conditional picks, with Hanifin, like if he signs here.
Yeah, but if a Holtz or a Mercer, I mean, you're not getting Nemec and you're not getting Hughes, but if
here's the problem with what Tony Soprano's saying. Nico Dawes is their guy, and give him a couple of years to develop.
The Devils
have already taken too long to develop. Their fans are tired of that.
Yeah,
that's the problem.
They need a now goalie.
Yeah,
they've needed a now goalie for 2 years.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, that's like waiting for Bobby Bacala to turn into a real mobster, and he never did.
Nice reference.
Yeah.
All right, so what else do we have here?
Fat guy, but that was about it.
Let me bring up my other things here.
It's easy to be a fat guy.
He's on Blue Bloods now.
So here's something I came up with.
Yep, go ahead.
I came up with two defensemen, and I thought the Rangers could use them, but there's other teams too. So it's funny with the Rangers talking to Seattle. I figured if Seattle doesn't make the playoffs, I mean, Brian Dumoulin's a plum guy for someone to get. He's got a 10 trade, no 10 team, no trade. He's only at 3.1 for one more year after this year. You got to believe with his experience, somebody would want him. And then the other one is with St. Louis and Marco Scandello. He's a UFA after this year. He's got a no trade. It's like a 7-team list. That's another guy. If they fall out in the next day or two, Philly beats them tonight, let's say, and they decide to put their hands up. These are two good defensemen that could get on the market.
Yeah, those are two. I mean, but the problem is really right now, like I'm talking to teams who are trying to trade defensemen. They're all basically saying the same thing to me. Who have you heard that's looking for a defenseman? Which is a funny thing to get from people because that tells you right now that there's just not that many teams looking for defensemen.
I think it has to do with. I think they're looking. I think it has to do with the price,
right?
And what they offer. So in other words, if you're talking about the Flyers defensemen don't have much playoff experience, almost nothing, and price is good. But the playoff experience is what matters this time of year.
I'll give you that. It's not as many teams as you think. I think I don't know.
I'll give you 4 teams right now that are looking for a defense. Okay, Boston, because right now Grzelcyk is out, Lindholm is out, and they may be back, but they need depth.
Bruins. I'll tell you. I did a blog list. I'm going to go along with what you're going, Mike. I'm going to talk about the defenseman I've heard Boston's interested in.
Okay.
In this order, basically, like if I listed last week, I did a blog where I at the end of the week, right before Lubushkin got traded. I did this blog. So Edmondson is the top guy on Bruins list. I was told.
That's possible because he's making very little money. Yeah.
They like Hannafin, but the chances are tough to get him. Savard, Walker, and Len Barry is like a last option type of thing. But
add Eric Johnson to that list.
Yeah,
Boston has been scouting Buffalo a lot. Now, okay, so Boston.
Tyson, not Len Barry, right? Tyson.
Sorry, Tyson
Barry. Sorry,
I knew it wasn't that, but
I know.
Oh man. Going back to Len Barry, that's an old.
Raymond Barry. Tampa Bay.
Right.
Now we don't know about Hannafin, but right now, Sergachev is out for the year. They've got right now they've got Hedman, Cernak, Perbix, and 4 guys that I've never heard of. So, and they could be in on Johnson. They could be in on a lot, some of the names that you just mentioned.
Yeah.
Dallas is looking for a depth defenseman. The Nick Seeler has been tied to Dallas. I think it was either Pierre LeBrun or Friedman mentioned that. And Toronto is still looking for another defenseman. So that's 4 teams, and I think there are more.
Yeah,
I think there's a few more. I think the Rangers would still.
I think Winnipeg is.
Well, I think Florida is too. I think there are teams that are looking for defensemen, but the reality is that no one is willing to pay anything. So what you're looking at right now is that prices are so ridiculously low that like the Flyers aren't going to move those 2 guys for 3rd round draft picks. That's just
okay. So
that's all they're going to get
then. Into this for a minute. Okay, two things on this.
Yeah.
So the first one is, like I had said to Mike, I think it was yesterday. Like if a team is trying to do a 3-team deal, the ones you love, they're going to be able to do 1 maybe by the deadline. You can't do 2. So I think your point is correct on the sense that it's hard to do those. Now the Flyers, if let's say Walker wants, like we hear, 4 to 5 years and $4 million bucks, I'll take the 3rd round pick because I'm also saving a roster spot for one of my young players that technically should be getting a chance next year if the team is truly rebuilding. Now Nick Seeler, if you want to say, hey, a 4th round pick doesn't work, and you're only giving Seeler 2 years and maybe $2 million or $1.5 million, I keep him there.
Yeah.
But the more you block, the problem is they got Drysdale. Bristow's going to be hard to get rid of. They may have to trade a pick, just like Chuck Fletcher, to get rid of him. Mm-hmm. And you've got Seeler and Walker. Where is the room for Adder? Where is the room for Bonk in 3 years? Where is that's what you have to think about. Yeah, no, that's true. Even some of those guys, then trade those young players.
Yeah, but I think when Seeler, I think you're looking at those 2 guys you mentioned there. They're definitely top 4 defensemen, in my mind.
Oh no, on the Flyers, not a top 4. They're not top 4 in the league. No.
And then the Flyers,
Walker's on the Flyers. They are.
I'm not talking about Walker. I'm talking about the 2 guys that Russ mentioned, as far as the defensemen that they're
Scandell and Dumoulin.
Now, the prospects that Russ is saying they need to make space for, they're eventually top 4 defensemen for the Flyers.
Yeah, they're expected to be, and we haven't even mentioned Zamula, who's in a really weird situation too.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
it's a lot of defensemen.
Right. No, it's really true. I really didn't want to do too much Flyer stuff, but that the Bobby Brinks thing the other day with we might want to talk about for a second.
I'll give you my thought. Well, you say your thought. You haven't verbalized it yet.
No. So if those who don't know about it, Tortorella went nuts on him basically, and has had problems. And it's the ironic thing about it. I was watching the game. I wasn't there. You were at the game. I'm watching the game, and the people calling the game, Jackson, and like couldn't have been more glowing in their praise of Brinks. Like he's really turned himself into a player that needs to be on this team. He's turned himself into a player who's got he's forced himself. They're not going to be sending him back to the AHL anytime soon. All this stuff right before that happened, and then of course Tortorella goes nuts. I worry about it a little bit. Like I feel like this is like Tortorella needs his kicking, whipping voice, and this feels like Brinks is one of those guys. I don't think
at the beginning of the year. At the beginning of the year, it was Morgan Frost, and now that's the model here. He's going to abuse these players until they conform to what he wants to do.
But here's what I would say. So I wasn't at the game because it was in Washington, but I was watching it from a casino.
Right.
I was at the craps table with a friend, and I was watching it. Right.
Okay, there you go.
And so I didn't know what they were saying on the broadcast, but
Snake Eyes.
I knew that Brink scored the first goal, right?
Yeah.
And that was great. I was like, oh, okay, this is good.
Yeah.
Then I knew he was involved in that other goal. But so was Couturier by blowing the face off, right?
Yeah, right.
Nothing happened to Couturier. Now you could say, well, he's on the fourth line, but he's on the fourth line to save minutes because they know they probably should be resting him at times. With Brink, and somebody asked me, what would you have done? And I said, I would have said, hey, get the hell off the ice. And I would have definitely made him sit out for 2 or 3 shifts or even the rest of the period. But they needed offense, and I would have put him back in because it was obvious they weren't going to win that game without him because they needed the offense, and he was hot. So then take it to the next game where I was at. He looked fine on the power play, but he was hesitant 5-on-5 in my eyes. He was afraid to make – there was a point where there was a play in Flyers defensive zone where I felt like Brink could have taken it, intercepted it, and gone down the ice, but it would have been a little chancy, and he didn't take the chance. Right. And I feel like that is what happens – when you have a coach that says,
but that's what he wants, Russ.
Yeah, I know, but you don't get the benefit of the guy's offense and creativity if you have to have that.
He doesn't care. He wants the safe play.
I know.
And see that's the thing. That's the death of creativity, and that's why John Tortorella was not the right team or right coach for that team in terms if you were looking to rebuild with young players. I can't dispute what they've done in terms of their success and overachieving this year. But if you think that this is constructive was for some of those young guys, I don't know. I don't think so. It wasn't constructive in some aspects with Mike Babcock in Toronto. Look what happened. He actually stifled some of those guys for years.
I'm not a big fan of it, I'm not a big fan of taking a young guy, especially like a guy who has to play on the edge. Like Brink is a lot like Konechny in a lot of ways,
I mean, there's a similar offensive ability there. Now he doesn't have the toughness or other things that Konechny does, but you're right. And the thing is, the other thing that's important is he's got one more contract coming, and then he's a UFA, one more RFA contract.
Yeah.
They still don't know what he is. He should be playing a lot this year because they need to figure out exactly what he is, because if they just sign him to 1 year and then they sort of let him go and he turns into something somewhere else, then what are you going to say about Tortorella?
Yeah, and it feels like, so you wonder if Bobby Brink could be moved. Like I wonder about that at the deadline. Like if they could turn around and make him part of something.
I don't think it's impossible.
Yeah, I don't think it is either. And I wouldn't like that because I honestly think that him and Frost together are a nice combination. I thought
actually, Cates is good too because Cates plays defense.
Well, I want to ask Peter something about the Jets because I saw them up close against the Sabres on Sunday, and they came back from I think it was a 3-0 deficit against the Hurricanes and won 5-3, and then they did basically in Buffalo only was up 2-1, and then Winnipeg turned it on and scored four goals in the third period, and that's not a habit you want to get into where you fall behind, especially in the playoffs, and have to come back. But I do, I looked at the way the Jets play. I like their defense. Brossoit played good as I didn't see Hellebuck, but I think on Saturday, but Brossoit played well. and he kept them in the game until.
Yeah, he made a key save in the third that kept that from getting turned into a tie game.
Yeah,
but in looking at them, I mean, obviously the Monahan trade helped because now you got the 1-2 punch of Scheifele and Monahan. But yesterday, they're loading Ehlers, Connor, and Scheifele on one line, and if another team stops that line, there's not much there past that. They got to go out and need a rider,
right?
But you know what I'm saying? It's like I think that there's room for depth there. There's room for depth, and I think that's the way that the Shovel Day Off has to go.
I think he should add depth. I mean, I've been a little tough on him, but Morgan Barron, he got a goal yesterday. Not a great goal, but he got one.
Yeah, Luukkonen blew that one. That was a goal that was a shot that he should have had.
Yeah, I do think there's reason to shore up the bottom six just to make them a little more difficult and have a little more offensive punch to them. Right now there is a mind-numbing controversy going on in the Winnipeg Jets blogosphere, Twitter sphere, whatever you want to call it, about the usage of Nick Ehlers.
Yeah,
it's actually gotten so bad that I can't remember where I saw the quote yesterday, but basically what it said was someone had talked to an agent, and the agent said, he's not my client, but if I were his agent, I would probably be advising him to look elsewhere when his contract's up. So the point being is, in Carolina on Saturday, at the end of the second period, where the Jets were down 3-0, just lifeless, Bonus moved Ehlers up to the top line, and all of a sudden they outchanced him 4-1 in the last 2 minutes of the game.
Right.
Then he starts the set on the top line, and boom, Connor scores, and then things just start happening. Then yesterday, Bonus moves him down and brings Nemesnikov up,
right,
and he scores the go-ahead goal to make it 3-2.
No, he scored the tying goal, didn't he?
No, I think he scored the 3-2 goal.
I thought Barron scored the. Yeah.
Was it the tying goal?
Not that. Right.
Wow.
Sorry, it was my fault.
No. I'm gonna look right now.
Here's what I would say, Pete, about Ehlers, because I followed him for a long time.
Yeah, it was Barron. Then Nemestikov got the 4-1.
Ehlers leaves you wanting more.
Right.
And those first few years when he was getting 64, 65 points,
right,
we kind of all thought he would build on that, and he really never has.
Well, it's hard when sometimes for no explicable reason you just get moved to the third line.
No, I get it.
Yeah.
His minutes, there's all sorts of things that show. You can get into very intricate stats about this, very granular stats, but you can get into just the raw numbers. And the raw numbers are when Ehlers is played on the top line, they outscore the opposition. They do the one thing you want a top line to do is outscore them, and they give up less goals. Like, it's just the raw numbers, right? The raw numbers.
Right.
When he's played on the top line or started on the top line, the Jets are something in this year 19-7-4 or something like that. It's like even the media, and this stuff came from Scott Billick of the Winnipeg Sun, and he went and dove into this because he's just trying to say, he goes, I don't want to get into the details and all the different variables that comes with it. He goes, just the pure base level numbers say the team performs better when he gets top line minutes with Scheifele. And the difference between Connor with Scheifele and Ehlers with Scheifele is astronomical.
Yes.
And the other part is, why can Kyle Connor be almost inept inside his own blue line and get chance after chance? And basically it's because
he scores 40 goals a year.
Right. He's Kyle Connor.
Because he's Kyle Connor. Yeah. But he also allows 40 goals a year.
Well, but the point is,
it's also how coaches like to play.
Okay, but here's what I would say.
He's way better at zone exits. He's way better at zone entries. Connor is a straightforward guy. He goes up and down the ice in a linear pattern.
Well, he is fast, though.
Easier, yes. Easier for coaches to understand and see. He's not freewheeling. And
okay, here's what I would say, though, about Ehlers. And, of course, a lot of players would play better with Scheifele, but I don't discount your point. What I think they're trying to do, And I think this has been a problem of Ehlers, but maybe it's been a team problem too. They always want to spread out the offense, and Ehlers is not a line driver. And they probably want him to be a line driver, and he just can't do it.
I think he is a line driver. I think every line
he's driving a line with Scheifele, it's not really much of a line driver because Scheifele will get those points without Ehlers too.
Well, but he doesn't when he's with Connor.
I mean,
the best line in hockey was Ehlers, Scheifele, and Velarde when Connor was injured. So what's Connor's pedigree that says, "Well, I should bump Ehlers down"?
Maybe it's Scheifele. Maybe Scheifele. That's who he likes on the line.
I mean, if you put Connor with Monahan, I mean, is his production going to drop like a stone? I mean,
well, Connor's production isn't. It was great right before he got injured. It hasn't totally returned.
No, but he got injured. We got to give him a break.
Well, okay.
What's the risk of doing that?
Let's look at this because I think this is going to be interesting and is going to color a lot what we're going to talk about on Friday. If you look at the East right now, all of a sudden, because the Flyers have played 62 games, they have 71 points. The two wild cards have 72 points. If you look right now, realistically, the Islanders are not selling because the Islanders are only 5 points behind and they have 2 games in hand. The Capitals are probably the Capitals should sell, but right now, could they convince themselves that they're still in it because they have 65 points and they have 2 games in hand on the Flyers? So they're 6 points behind and they have 2 games in hand. That's a team that should sell. Mantha, Edmondson, they've got 2 or 3 unrestricted free agents that they could get a lot for. But if they convince themselves that they're still in it, when I don't think they really are, I mean, that's not beneficial to that team going forward. The Devils, I mean, I think the Devils they're gonna buy no matter what because I think that we just talked about it. Yeah. But after that, Pittsburgh, Buffalo, Montreal, anything not nailed down, you sell in the East. Yeah. But the talk around the rink on Saturday after the Sabres beat Vegas was, we're 10 points out, but we have 2 games in hand, and we're still in it. And that reality check came in the third period against Winnipeg. I'm sorry. Oposo, Johnson, Gergensons, anybody who's a UFA, if you get anything for them, sell. It should be that.
Yeah. No, you're right. And I was gonna get into the Capitals are an interesting team. Someone was talking about that, and they're talking about the Capitals in the chat room in the chat room too. No. They actually, are not completely out of it at all. They really.
No, they're not. No.
And they have some games in hand, and they're starting to play better.
Right.
Yep.
And to me, they're one of the teams that people are. I don't think really people have been thinking about them as a playoff possibility. They're in better shape than a lot of teams.
I mean, I think after they beat the Flyers, which was a 4-point swing, and after they cut Kuznetsov was maybe something that was sort of weighing on them. Yeah. I think the reality is they're close. Yeah. And it really depends on the goaltending. Lindgren was amazing for half this season. If he gets hot again, it is a possibility.
Yeah, right. He gets hot, then everything changes. And
I mean, we said this. Spencer Carberry's been doing this with mirrors because he's like minus 30 and they're in the playoff hunt.
It's a phenomenal job. It's a job that won't even be recognized in terms of the Jack Adams.
I agree with
that team being anywhere close to with Ovechkin having 15 or 16 goals and Backstrom is done and Kuznetsov with his issues, it's miraculous. That's why I'm basically saying I don't think it's reality that they stay in it. I mean, let's say the next couple of games will be important, but when you have Edmondson, Pacioretty, and Mantha, all who in different situations could get you a lot of assets.
Yeah.
I'd really be tempted if I'm then to say this is just not our year, and let's
especially because I think that Mantha's one of those guys. Do they really want to resign him? He's having a hell of a year.
Oh, they're not going to resign him.
No, they're not going to resign him.
He's having a killer year.
I know, but
why wouldn't you resign him? I mean,
because for the 2 past years since they got him from the Verona deal, he's done nothing. It's just a salary drive. Now
it could be a salary drive, or it could just be it's one of those things.
He's been enigmatic back to his days in Detroit. Like, he's got unbelievable ability. He is he's big, he's fast, an unbelievable shot. I remember the outdoor game that Russ and I were at when they played the Leafs at BMO, where I think he had a hat trick that game. He matched Matthews goal for goal. He was fantastic. It's just there hasn't been enough there. Now the talk is that's the guy that Edmonton is targeting. Because Holland drafted him with the Red Wings,
right?
For Edmonton, that's a perfect fit for Edmonton.
Holland didn't pick him in Detroit. You remember this? Like, Holland was really upset and disappointed with him in Detroit. So Holland knows if Mantha has upsides and downsides, which we all know he does. Holland knows.
Well, it wasn't Holland. No. It was the other. It was what's his name?
Flashel.
No. Older.
Jimmy Devellano?
Jimmy's the one that screamed about Mantha. He posted it on Facebook.
That's right.
He ranted about him.
He screamed about him in Detroit, right? But
Devellano was
Edmonton, Holland. No, I'm sorry, Detroit. I'm forgetting about him. Yeah, I'm thinking.
No, Holland. I don't know how Holland felt about him. I know Devellano didn't like him.
Yeah. I mean,
there's a lot of ability. There's a lot of ability there, but
I think Mantha's. I think I could definitely see Edmonton going and taking a swing at him.
He definitely could help that team. But
Edmonton is another one that I've talked about a lot. I think is going to be a really important pickup, but people are not talking about.
He has playoff ability. I think you're right in that. His problem is it's hard to keep him healthy now.
Well, I mean, okay, he's big. He's got a. He has Stanley Cup experience with the Canadian, the deep run that he had with the Canadians, and he won a cup with St. Louis. The most attractive thing about him is his salary is $1.75 million, and if they retain 50%, he's basically an entry-level salary. So a lot of teams could fit him in, and that's why you probably could get a second-round pick for a guy who has had trouble staying healthy.
Yeah,
he's a get. He's a big get.
If he stays healthy though, he is, and
he's effective if he's healthy.
And if you're a solid team, with not a lot of cap space, and you're going for Stanley Cup run, which is what a lot of these teams are.
Boston's a
perfect fit. He's a perfect fit in a lot of places. Like he's a perfect fit for the Rangers. I think he's a perfect fit for a lot. I just think a lot of teams. I think a lot of teams are going to take a shot at him for sure.
But in the chat, people were talking about Guentzel, and
that's a good one. We should get to that one.
Yeah, because I mean, who isn't interested in Guentzel? I mean, if you're a contender and you need a score, if you're Vegas, if you're Colorado, if you're Dallas, I mean, this is if you're Vancouver, Edmonton, Dubas is in a perfect situation here because Guentzel will be back probably in a week or two after the deadline. He's got a lot of experience. He's quick. He's got a lot of skill. And that's an organization that is starving. And apparently the report that came out on the weekend was that he's not interested in draft picks. He wants prospects. He wants a quick turnaround here. He doesn't want somebody who's going to take 3 years to get to the NHL. He wants guys.
As we talked about, he's really stuck there. That's why he's stuck in there, and he has got to make that move. He's got to make the quick turnaround because Crosby and those guys demand it. And when you go after Karlsson like he did, that signing of Karlsson that put them on that track. There was no way they could not be on that track now. Russ
and I were talking about this because Vegas is one of the teams that is attached in terms of the interest to Guentzel, and we know, they've got Stone on LTIR.
Yeah.
And I saw Vegas on Saturday, and on the top line, they had their best prospect, Brandon Brisson, the son of Pepperson, the agent of Sidney Crosby, playing on the top line with William Karlsson and Jonathan Marchessault, and he scored a goal. If you tell me that has nothing to do with Guentzel, I'll eat my hat.
Yeah, I'm just telling you that would be a massive mistake. As good as Guentzel is, Brisson could be there for 10 years. They don't have any young base there.
Agreed.
Yeah. At some point, when the bottom falls out, you would have your first or second line center still. You trade him now just to try and keep it going.
But Bill Foley is the equivalent, Russ, of the San Diego Padres owner.
He's not, because he's at least one. The Padres.
No. What I'm saying is he wants to keep winning now.
You know what? I think at some point you won your cup. We kept hearing that excuse. He's got to win his cup because he's getting older. Well, now you got to look at the long-term. You got to look at the long-term health of your franchise too. I think that's something that needs to be taken into account with Vegas.
Well, I mean, I mean, maybe that's. I mean, from
I get passionate about that.
Oh no, I know nothing about being passionate, Russ. I'm just a wilting flower,
I mean, I think that there's a bunch of teams that are interested in Guentzel. Obviously, like you said, Mike, who wouldn't be interested? I've talked about this before. Montreal is interested in him. I know this for
but
fact.
They can do that in the summer. They can try to sign him in the summer.
No, they can't. Not if you see. There is something to. We always say that they can sign him in the summer, but like Kevin Allen talked about before, we talked about on the show many times, is that getting a guy right now to play on your team with your team for the rest of the season.
Right.
That if he goes to Vegas, he could end up just playing the rest of his career in Vegas very easily. Like there's no question about it because he's gonna go to a place. Montreal can bring him in and kind of show him what the whole team's about.
Right.
It's your way to show off your team.
I get what you're saying, but the thing is, if you look at say the last 5 or 6 years, I can count on one hand the number of instances where a non-playoff team is traded for a player who is a rental to try to get him to convince him to sign him before he turns free agent in the summer. They're not going to waste their assets to do that. They'll just wait until July 1st and try to sweet talk him then. You don't if you're Buffalo, if you're Montreal, if you're Ottawa, you're interested in hockey deals where you get guys who are retainable and under control. A guy who can walk away. Look what happened with DeBrincat in Ottawa. They traded for him. He had 2 years left in his contract. They couldn't convince him to stay. They got pennies on the dollar for him.
For sure. And that is always a possibility. Always a possibility. But I think that Florida will be in on Guentzel. I do. I think that they
can fit him, sure.
If they can fit him too. They don't have a lot of space. They don't have a lot of room. But
are they really going to give up Anton Lundell for that? I don't.
No, not a chance. No. No, they were no. Lundell's like one of those untouchable players on them. They really like.
I know, but I'm just saying this is Guentzel, so they're going to shoot really high with.
But other than Mackie Samoskevich,
well, that's the next guy on the list. Like, they don't have a first round pick until 2027. I think.
Right.
Samoskevich would be the guy.
Yeah,
he'd have to be the guy. I would agree with that. But you have to have some kind of insurance that you could keep him too. I think that would be down the line.
I mean,
after this season, Florida has states.
Somebody in the chat was saying, well, Vancouver's interested in Guentzel, but yeah, okay, if Vancouver's interested in Guentzel, and I think Russ, you said like Podkolzin would be part of.
I said Podkolzin. They're not getting Lekkerimaki. Lekkerimaki is lighting it up, but there's no chance.
But that's what Dubas is looking for. He's looking for Willander or Lekkerimaki.
Yeah, he's not getting those guys, but he would take Podkolzin and a pick because Podkolzin plays good defense and there's offensive upside there. He's just not had a chance to really break through on a really good Vancouver team. So I think a guy like Podkolzin could help him. And I think if you got a conditional first or something, I think that deal could happen. If Winnipeg was interested in Guentzel, the Dubas would be asking for McGroarty or would be asking for Lambert. If the Leafs were interested in Guentzel, they'd be asking for Matthew Nyes. Those teams are not doing those. That's the thing. No, but I would say this. I would take Podkolzin over Lambert. I would.
Over who?
Lambert.
I would seriously consider Nyes for Guentzel. I would.
Not a chance in hell.
I mean, I know that I know you're in love with Nyes, and I know and Toronto's in love with Nyes, and I like Nyes too. But Guentzel is a much better.
I'm not saying Guentzel is a great player. He's a better player than Nyes. But the problem is Nyes is 21 and he's retainable for 5 more years. And Guentzel would if the Leafs traded for him, he would go someplace else because they can't afford him. So that it would make no sense to do that.
Yeah, I mean, but unless they can figure out, like, there are sign and trades and things like that. We have seen those things, and I do think that Guentzel is one of those that could quite possibly be that. Not the Guentzel. I'm thinking. I'm sorry. I'm sleep deprived here, kids.
I don't think there's one player out there that helps the Leafs win the cup. I just don't.
No, I mean, I think
not that's available. I mean,
I actually think they have enough right now, Russ.
That's what I mean.
No. I mean, come on. This is what, like, I will give Brad Treliving a lot of credit because he traded for Lyubushkin, which was not a big splash, and it helps him in terms of he's going to play with Riley. He didn't give up the first round pick for Tanev because that would have been the move that probably Kyle Dubas would have made because Kyle Dubas was going all in all the time.
Right.
This team is not good enough to win a Stanley Cup. Are they good enough to win a round or two? Maybe if they face the right team in the first round. They're not good enough to win the Stanley Cup. So it makes no sense you need young assets to come into that organization over the next couple of years.
Yeah, the Leafs have too many older guys. They do.
Yeah, I mean,
but that's for down the line. But right now, there's.
Well, I mean,
there is no down the line if you keep trading in draft picks.
Oh, I'm not saying you should trade draft picks. I don't think they need to make a trade. That's what I'm saying. Like we talked about. I think the Leafs are one of like 5 to 10 teams that definitely could win a Stanley Cup this year. There's no.
I'd say they'd be like number 10.
No,
I think they're like number 13. I mean, they're just the only way they get a couple.
He's not going to do it.
What's that?
He's not going to back me up that they're not in the top. They're not number 10. Can you tell me 9 teams that have a better chance than Toronto winning the Stanley Cup? That's
okay. Florida, Boston, Rangers, Carolina.
First of all, I'll say no on Boston. But
Tampa Bay. That's 5 in the East.
No, do you think Tampa is better than Toronto?
I do.
Yeah, I do. Vasilevsky, Stamkos, Point, Kucherov. I mean,
no.
Winnipeg, Dallas, Colorado, Vancouver.
Winnipeg who?
What's that?
You said Winnipeg, then who?
Winnipeg, Dallas, Colorado, Vancouver, Vegas.
Yeah, then the Leafs. They're like number 10.
I would say even LA.
Oh,
I mean, LA could be.
No, LA doesn't have a goaltender, and Edmonton is dysfunctional. So I think the Leafs have a better chance than them.
I think they're 10 or 11.
Look,
and Mike's list is pretty good.
I'll tell you why I agree with Eck on this. In that,
thank you.
If the Leafs can find a way in the playoffs to control the play and keep it to their style, they could be very, very dangerous.
Yeah.
If Sheldon Keefe can become a grandmaster chess champion of strategy, and he's not bad of how he does things, if he can do that, be very clever in some of his matchups, I think I wouldn't want to face the Leafs. If they do nothing,
so you're telling me Boston would be worried about the Leafs or Florida?
Yes.
I don't know.
I think any team should be worried about any team.
No questions asked.
Right now,
things go wrong.
Right now, and as currently stands, and we know that Don Sweeney is going to try to add a center before the deadline, whether it's Wenberg or Henrique or whatever. Okay, but right now, of the 3 potential teams that the Leafs could play in the first round, one is the Rangers. The second one is Florida, and the third one is Boston. I think the only team that they can beat of the 3 is Boston. I think,
Mike, if you think there's more than 10 teams better than the Leafs, if the playoffs started today, what do the Leafs have to do to get into the top 10? What move do they have to make then to put them in the top 10?
They would need to add a legitimate top 4 defenseman. A top pairing defenseman, and there's no way to do that.
Nobody who's 35 years old either. It's
right. No, I'm talking about like a 28-year-old top 4 defenseman.
You think if they had gotten Tanev, they would be there?
He's 34 years old. He's a second pairing shot.
No, right. It doesn't matter how old he is.
It doesn't matter. No, I think it matters.
It matters
this year.
If they
now you're talking just this year.
We're not talking right now.
If they added Hanifin, maybe. Okay. But Hanifin's a lefty, and he plays the wrong side, and he can't play the right side.
No,
they would need a right-handed version of Hanifin, and that's not available at the deadline. So
what if they trade for Justin Schultz?
He's not, or Adam Larson, or like some idiot in the chat. Was like, they could trade Justin Hall. Okay, there you go. No.
So then again, the psychology of this stuff is interesting. On paper, you say you need to fill this hole. The Leafs have beat good teams.
Yeah,
exactly where they are.
Yeah,
and is it? The reason that they're not maybe higher up is because they had very inconsistent goaltending in the beginning of the year.
Right.
And got hurt. Well,
St.
Louis doesn't have a cup. if Binnington doesn't come out of nowhere and stands
Right.
on his head for 2 months.
No, that's fair, but I mean, but
Right?
again,
Anything can happen. So
But
why
have that in him, too.
spend good money after bad?
But Peter,
anything can happen.
I will grant your point about
Just
Binnington.
win, baby.
Because Binnington had a phenomenal 6 months and they won a Stanley Cup. But look at their blue line. They had Edmondson, they had Parayko, they had Pietrangelo. Their defense was phenomenal. And the Leafs right now, Ilya Lyubushkin, as much as I like him, is on the top pairing with Morgan Riley. That's how bad the Maple Leafs defense is right now.
Yeah, you can't count on the Leafs defense in the playoffs. And the goaltending is not great, but it's been okay and it's been better lately. But the defense is not like a top-notch defense.
No, it's an average defense. And honestly, like if I'm Sheldon Keefe and my job is lying on winning the first round, the starter in game 1 is Joseph Woll, and it's not Ilya Samsonov. Because even though Ilya Samsonov got them the win in the playoffs in the first round last year, I mean his broken.
He's been really good lately.
He's been good lately, but he has these ups and downs. And Woll has been consistently good all year when he's not hurt.
So we're back to talking about what the holes in the Leafs are, what they could do.
Sure.
They're not going to be able to do it. They don't have the capital to do it.
Right.
So it's just not going to happen. So they're going to go in. They probably made their deal. Maybe they get some sort of random depth guy in another position too, just to shore things up.
Agreed.
Is it frustrating because they're in the situation, or is it frustrating because they should have been prepared to never be in this situation? Two different things, right?
No. Okay. And you can make excuses about, injuries affect things and you should be able to recover from them, but they've never been able to recover from one injury. And that's Jake Muzzin. Because Jake Muzzin would have been there the last 2 or 3 years. They wouldn't have had to make some of the deals that they made. And had Jake Muzzin been there,
what's his deal, Mike? Is he retired?
He's done. He had a neck injury, and he's
officially done.
He's on LTIR. His contract is up after this year, and he's going to retire.
Right.
So unfortunately, and it's sad because he was the type of defenseman and the type of leader that they needed, and they never were able to replace him. And that's a top 4 hole that that's like Winnipeg, even though it was different circumstance. That's like Winnipeg losing Trouba and him going someplace else. That's a guy that's tough to replace.
Yeah, no, that's for sure. That's for sure. I don't know. We'll get more of that for sure. We'll be back soon, guys, with another podcast. Remember, without the buzz, it is just hockey. Enjoy. Keep an eye on that rumor chart. It's moving all the time. Talk to you soon.